if you don't keep up with the news that I present on my website. There was an explosion at one of Iran's top secret nuclear facilities that pretty much decimated the whole facility. Now, of course, Iran would want you to believe that it was caused by something that happened within the nuclear program itself. But satellite photos have declared that this massive explosion, or set of explosions, was caused by a foreign power. Now, at this time, Iran is not accusing anyone, nor is anyone coming forward to say that they're to take credit for this. But in time, I have a feeling that it's going to be proven out that it was probably Israel who performed this massive explosion and dangerous operation. And this isn't the first time that this has happened. Back in 2011, another massive explosion took place at one of Iran's secret nuclear facilities. And of course, Iran tried to excuse it as a internal type of malfunction that set off a series of explosions. But this is what inside sources are saying, and citing European diplomats. The El Ra, a newspaper in Kuwait, identified Israel as being behind the blast at the Parchin military site 30 kilometers southwest of Tehran. According to the newspaper, Iran subsequently ordered Hezbollah terrorists in Lebanon to plant bombs along the Israeli border as a response to the action. 2 Israeli soldiers were wounded in a border explosion this week. Western intelligence agencies believe the Parchin site was used for nuclear testing and as a facility to fit nuclear warheads to Iran's long-range missiles. The International Atomic Agency inspectors had long been denied access to the site. The explosion that destroyed the Parchin site was massive. Various reports reveal that windows shattered up to 15 kilometers away. Satellite photos backed up claims that the explosion was the result of an attack and showed almost total devastation to the facility. Now, looking for Israel's responses, Israel's government declined to issue an official statement on the incident, but Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in recent weeks had renewed his firm warnings that Israel would not accept a nuclear-armed Iran. Now the question is how in the world did Israel penetrate the very advanced and technical anti-aircraft missile battery, at least the ones that are from Russia, and get in there and cause this explosion? It says, well, this is another one from the Weekly Standard. There's another article that says, experts continue to debate whether the explosion at the Iranian military base at Parchin earlier in the week was an act of sabotage. The New York Times notes that the satellite images of the incident showed evidence reminiscent of pictures of a missile development site 30 miles west of Tehran that was virtually destroyed during a test in November 2011, which I had stated earlier, that killed 17 people, including General Hassan Moghadam, the leading force behind Iran's advanced missile efforts. Nonetheless, David Albright, head of the Institute for Science and International Security, told the Times that it could have been an accident. However, Hassan Abdul Habsan, writing in the Kuwaiti newspaper Al Rahi, reports that European diplomatic sources in Washington confirmed that the massive blast was no accident, but a premeditated attack by a foreign country. Now one has to wonder how in the world Israel pulled this off. Did they penetrate by stealth into Iranian territory, get in, get out after blowing up this nuclear site? Or was it long-range missiles, or whatever the case may be? As time goes on, we will find out I'm sure we'll find out more information on how this was actually achieved. And if Stratford does come up with information, I will pass that along to you. But I can assure you that Iran knows exactly who it was, but yet they did not retaliate like many people believe that they would. Now, frankly, I am shocked that Israel, if they did pull this off, they were able to do so. That would be horrible news for Iran and prove that Israel is more technologically and militarily advanced than anyone could have imagined. Another question to ask is that did they pull off this mission without the permission of the United States? Or was it pulled off with the help of the United States and served to send a message to Iran? But one thing's for sure, the United States is keeping quiet about this and has not condemned anybody over this incident. I have to believe that they have full knowledge of what happened and how it happened. But one thing's for sure, Iran is not jumping to any conclusion and certainly is not going to jump into a war against Israel over the loss of one of their nuclear facilities. You know, for years I've heard people say, yes, this is if Israel's going to attack Iran, and when they do, there's going to be a massive retaliation, and that's going to set up the Psalm 83 war. Well, there's been 2 massive attacks already, and both times it has been believed that Israel was behind those attacks, but yet no retaliation. I have to believe that Iran is better served not jumping into a massive war with Israel, especially when they know with good knowledge that they were able to penetrate their borders with no opposition. I have to believe the U.S. is trying to send Iran a message that they need to stop dragging their feet and get in line with an agreement with the U.S. or the P5+1 and get this nuclear deal done. But even though this is a major story that has taken place, there are other stories that are just as big. And let me tell you about this one. It says British opposition to help secure Palestinian vote in UK Parliament. And another article says that the EU is prepared to impose crushing sanctions on Israel. Let's go to the British opposition first. And this from the Jerusalem Post. It says Britain's Labour Party, the official opposition, privately signaled on Thursday their support for a backbench parliamentary motion calling for the recognition of a Palestinian state, making it increasingly likely that a vote on the issue will succeed next Monday. That's only a couple days from now. The move effectively squashes an attempt by pro-Israel MPs who tabled an amendment on an all-party basis, which states that before UK recognition is granted, there has to be an agreed solution following negotiations between Israel and the Palestinians. Labour's last-minute intervention will likely help secure a majority for the simple recognition bid in the House of Commons. Now you might say to yourself, well, this really isn't, it doesn't mean anything. It's more of a vote of confidence than it is an official recognition. Well, that may be true, but this is just one more major hurdle that has gone in favor of the Palestinians. Even though it may be a symbolic recognition, at some point in time it will become an official recognition. And step by step, the Palestinians are becoming a state and is being recognized, and it won't be long until more and more EU nations will be recognizing the Palestinian state. And the worst thing that could happen to Israel if all of the European Union as a single unit decided to recognize the Palestinian Authority as a state, that would be big problems for Israel. I'd have to believe that the United States would have to fall in line at some point in time. And on top of recognition, here's another article that indicates that the EU is prepared to impose crushing sanctions on Israel. And it says that the Times of Israel and other sources are now reporting that the EU officials are preparing a far-reaching list of sanctions that can be imposed against Israel whenever the EU's political leadership decides to proceed with efforts to economically devastate the small but heavily trade-dependent Jewish state, meaning that they have a huge trade with the European Union, and these sanctions could hurt them quite a bit. The essence and purpose of the plan, coming just weeks after the end of Hamas's 50-day terror war against Israel, is not only to punish Israel economically, but to deprive the small but vibrant democracy of its political legitimacy, something that the international community, including the EU, extends to virtually every other country on earth, including Cuba, North Korea, and Iran. The revelation of the latest EU plans come on the heels of Sweden's decision earlier this week to become the first sitting member of the 28-nation EU to recognize the so-called State of Palestine. 4 Eastern European members of the EU voted to recognize Palestine in the 1980s when they were Warsaw Pact puppet states firmly in the orbit of the former Soviet Union. And the fact that Israel is trying to, or seeking to, build more homes and apartments, 2,600 apartment units slated to be built in Jerusalem's burgeoning Gavat Hamatos neighborhood has angered not only the European Union, but of course the United States as well. Now we'll have to wait and see how this actually turns out. It seems like the whole world is up against Israel, or at least the whole free world seems to be voicing their opinion against Israel's desire to build new homes in Jerusalem. But when Egyptian President Sisi said that he would supply land in the Sinai for a Palestinian state, and Mr. Abbas refused it, that story was swept under the rug. And then Mr. Sisi went on to further deny that he never said he never made that offer. But as these stories begin to develop, and as we see things happening, I fully believe that the pressure that the European Union is placing upon Israel right now will at some point turn into a European Union leader coming forth and bringing about a peace accord with Israel. Now, I've had many who have written me and have said that they believe it's some other entity that will bring the peace accord. I had somebody write me and indicate that it was the Vatican, and that peace would come from within the Pope. And I've had others say it's going to be somebody out of the Islamic world, and I've had a couple pinpointed as Turkey. Now, certainly the Calvary Prophecy Report believes that it will be a country, the Antichrist will come out of a country from the European Union. And there are biblical reasons behind why I believe that, and you can do your own research and your own homework to find out why I believe that. But if you've been with me for very long, you know why. But if you think it's one of these other places that will bring the peace, then that's fine too. Frankly, I'm not looking for the Antichrist, and I'm certainly not going to argue or spend time debating where he will come from. So, frankly, it's not a salvation issue, and there's only one of me, and there's many of you, and I certainly can't get involved in debates with every single person who writes me. But certainly, I believe that the rapture of the church is going to take place before that, and when we're in heaven, we can find out for sure from that vantage point where he will rise up out of. But certainly, my message is this right here. For those who do not know the Lord, you need to come to the Lord today. Today is the day of salvation. If you put it off, that you may be too late. And certainly for you Christians who are listening to this, you need to get your hands on a copy of my Tribulation Period Survival Guide. There's 2 copies that you can get a hold of. One is the free version, and the other is the paid version, which is a paperback book. Now, I'm not saying get a copy for yourself, but get a copy for your friends. I hand out copies all the time to people who I know are not going to make it in the rapture, or they could die before that. But there's one thing that does come about in this book, whether you believe that this survival book can help someone to survive the tribulation period. It's incidental. It preaches the gospel of Jesus Christ and tells anyone who reads it that's the first step. So in essence, this book is nothing more than an excuse for you to get in the hands of your lost loved ones. An interesting survival guide that tells them that they need to receive Jesus as Lord. And I can tell you right now that the minute the rapture takes place, they're going to be looking all over their house for that book if they misplaced it. Even though people may not take it seriously now, the second after the rapture takes place, they will be looking frantically to find out where they put this book. So please don't make the mistake of not arming those who you know are not going to make the rapture of the church. That is going to be a critical mistake that many are going to make when the rapture does take place. Well, this is Terry Malone with the Calvary Prophecy Report.